What's up, beautiful people? This is still of Book Behavior, and I'm still Pomo Bespoke, reporting live from the beautiful city of Lagos. Today, we are coupling everything together, doing all the work we need to do to couple our quarters and our vamp together. In the last class, we cut out the linings of our vamp and our quarters in a certain way. Now I'm going to show you the different processes, my own processes of how you can join the two parts together to complete your boot uppers. So you notice that I marked a point or about 3 cm just where the curve of the quarters begin. Then I cut, as you see that I'm doing, I cut along the tip of the quarters and then cut into the lining itself and trim it out like so. See it? Yup, that's what I mean. Then you do the same on the other side. So you cut from the tip of the quarter to that point just shy of where the curve begins, and then cut a notch into the lining itself. And this is what you should have when you're done. Then for the vamp itself, we'll cut along this line and cut on the other side as well. Now when you're cutting the linings out of your vamp, you should be careful to trim all the edges very well so that you don't have excess lining material sticking out where they shouldn't. So you trim it correctly. And now we will begin the process of joining the two parts together. So you hold up the lining like so, and then join them this way, and then flip over and join the other one. But before we do that, let's glue in this flap here. Let's glue them together so that it's just one straight piece. So I'll glue in these little pouches here, just enough glue to have them stick together. So on both the lining on the upper, I will add some glue so that when I, place them down, they will lie together. Now let's prepare the vamp itself. So I just scrape out some material from the top of the stitching allowance that we created when we made our pattern. Just scratch it using a scratch awl. Just scratch that stitching allowance so that it can glue properly together when we are joining. So you apply glue to this stitching allowance here. All this while we are waiting for the glue that we put on the pouch to dry. So we apply glue on the stitching allowance over there as well. By the time we're done with this, we hope that the glue on the pouches would have been dry and we can couple those in and then return back to this. So yeah, we glue those in and glue that in. Then of course you will notice that at some point some excess lining material will be sticking out, so you carefully trim that out as well. And do the same on the other side. Now, depending on the thickness of lining that you're using, you may want to skive off the area that corresponds to the stitching allowance on the lining itself. Sometimes it's not necessary, but while you do that, pay attention not to cut into the stitching that you made, especially around the tip of the quarter. So that's done. Now we'll begin to add glue to this side of the quarter itself, and then of course we had earlier added glue to the stitching allowance on the vamp. So we'll add some glue to this side, on the reverse side as well, and then we will just couple them in. We'll couple one side first and stitch, and then do the same on the other side. In this tutorial, if you have a post bed sewing machine, it will be very easy for you to do the stitching. But even if you have a flatbed, you would also get by with doing it using the processes that I describe in this tutorial. I have a post bed, but I understand that some people don't, so I will be doing every step of my stitching with my flatbed. So here I have glued the first part together. You need to hammer in securely so that you don't have any shifting when you're stitching. So I'll take this to the sewing machine and demonstrate how the first part of the coupling is done. So these are the lines along which I'll be stitching. I'm just marking that out so that you can visualize it. Now you will see the reason for those cuts that we made first on the lining of the quarter as well as on the lining of the vamp. It is so that we can toss them backwards, and then we are able to stitch without the lining coming into play while we are stitching. So we can actually flip them completely backwards and stitch without catching the reeler thread of the sewing machine on the linings. So I'll place this on the sewing machine and just go ahead and stitch. So remember, as we are stitching, we're able, because of those notches we cut, to draw the linings backwards, get them out of the way so that the sewing machine can only catch the areas that we intended. When you sew, don't forget to stitch about 1 cm into the quarter like this, back stitch, and then just secure the stitch in place, because this is the this part of your derby is the part that is going to receive the most stress. So we remove it from the sewing machine, and you can see how that came out. It didn't touch the lining, and that's because of those notches that we cut earlier on the said lining. Now let's go ahead and couple and stitch the other side in same and similar way. The only difference is that whereas we started from the feather edge or the lasting allowance in the first side, on this side we will start at the tip of the facing itself. Of course, we'll flip the linings backwards like we did before, draw them both out, both for the vamp and the quarters. You draw them completely out of the way of the stitching area so that when you stitch, it's not cut, the linings are not cut in between your stitches. So I mentioned that you start stitching this other side from the facing of the derby. So I did that in this case, did my back stitch as well, and then just go ahead and finish off the rest of the stitches. So as you can see, I've not used my post bed machine up to this point. I have simply and solely relied on my flatbed sewing machine. So the difficulty that you're going to have really is when you want to stitch the lining. You could just glue in the lining portions together, and that will be okay if your glue is strong enough, but you can also stitch them to some degree. So this is the final outcome of what we have. So next step will be to couple the linings, and that I will show you shortly. So the lining coupled, this is what I intend it to look like. I told you could stitch it or you could just hold it in place with glue, so you can see how it's completely independent of the upper, such that my stiffeners can go in all the way. Now this is the one that I haven't coupled, and it is the one that I'm going to use to demonstrate the process to you. So let's start. So the process starts by me turning the entire boot inside out. So I turn it inside out like so, and then simply do a few adjustments first. So the first thing I do is to glue this part where we cut the notch, to just glue it in place into the upper. So I add some glue there and then leave it to dry a bit and then couple it in place. Just close that wound that we gave to the lining there. Just close it up properly. Now the next thing is to cut out the excess material that we have on the vamp side of the lining. Just cut out the excess material and then simply use that to trace in where it should lie on the quarter lining. Then I'll add glue along that line, of course starting from the just a few cm into the upper itself, and then following the line that I traced on the lining. I'll do the same on the reverse on the other side, and then add some glue also on the vamp lining, the lining of the vamp itself, and then simply just couple everything together. Once I do this and couple it together, all that will remain to be done will be to cut out the excess lining material that we find on the quarter area, and then couple everything together. Right now, so this is me cutting out that excess material on the lining side. Cut the one on this side as well, and then all that will remain is, once the glue is dry, we will couple it in place. Just ensure it is securely coupled in place, and that would be it, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, stitching this is a bit tricky. Taking it to a flat bed, if you have a post bed, you wouldn't have a problem with stitching the lining at least up till the point where that notch was cut. But on a flat bed, it's a bit tricky, but it can be done. It will just take you to maneuver your stitching area a bit. It's tricky, really. In fact, I couldn't get accurate angles from my camera that you can visualize properly, but it can be done, and you can go ahead and try it. In any case, you could leave it just with the glue, since of course we are going to glue everything on top of the upper during lasting, and chances of it coming loose is very minimal. But if you want to be finicky, you can go ahead and finish stitching it up to the point where the notch was cut, and that will be it. So ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of, is it class 4 or class 5, and actually brings us to the end of upper making for this boot. So your assignment is to get your own to this stage and couple the two parts of the upper and linings that you have and submit in class. If you have any questions, put it in the comment section, or if you're a member of the paid class, you can also put your questions in the Telegram group. Till I see you guys next time, when we are going to be doing some lasting. God bless you, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. So God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. See you on the next class. Peace.